Investigator Leinfelder, these are photographs that you took of Ms. Klinsky's cellular telephone. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And the lady on the left in pink, that would be Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
And the H in the circle on the right would be Ms. Klinsky?
Yes.
All right, so we're starting with the messages at 10:07 p.m. And this is what Mr. Burdick just described with you on the abbreviated message. Shit just got real. I'm deleting this message. Don't reply back. Is that correct?
Yes.
After Ms. Klinsky requests or asks, how are things going? Where did you guys end up going? Ms. Phillips responds to her at 10:51 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that response reads, quote, he just freaked again. He was at the passenger side of the truck and tried to come at me around the truck, but I took off. I don't even know what to do. He has lost it tonight. He promised he would never touch me. He lied, end quote. Is that consistent with what you photographed?
Yes, it is.
And Ms. Klinsky appears to show some concern for Ms. Phillips throughout this, indicating that things were not okay. Is that correct?
I guess I'll eject speculation. Referring to what Ms. Klinsky thinks.
Okay, let me rephrase. Ms. Klinsky tells Ms. Phillips, quote, Lori, this isn't even okay in the slightest. Did he hit you? Are you okay? Is that correct?
It is.
And Ms. Phillips indicates that he's out of control. I am done. He can go to Bismarck on his own. He has issues, big time. Is that correct?
It is.
And he in this conversation, Investigator Leinfelder, presumably we're referring to Mark Phillips?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Phillips, in this conversation at least that you captured, appears to be talking about Mr. Phillips like he's alive, well, and going to Bismarck that weekend. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that?
Ms. Phillips' response seems to indicate her belief that Mr. Phillips was alive, well, and moving to Bismarck.
Objection out of the scope calls for a conclusion. It's not his speculation.
You can read if you need to read it out loud to point out the obvious, go ahead.
Okay. Well, we've pointed it out. Going on to page 2 of Exhibit 77. Ms. Phillips appears to be describing other actions to Ms. Klinsky that she later described to you on February 23rd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Particularly punching the window on the truck.
You're referring to the...
Yeah, the correction with the asterisks.
Yes.
And as well as grabbing her face and pushing it down between the seats.
Yes.
Bless you.
Yes.
Losing her earring.
Yes.
And then later, and Ms. Klinsky actually indicates that she could have her father come out and pick up Lori, right?
Yes.
Now, Lori indicated on these text messages that she was approximately 2 miles down the road in a subdivision. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what you texted.
And after the two of them apparently have another exchange about whether or not Lori should move to Bismarck. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips, during these text messages, describes her attempt to book a hotel room and inadvertently booking a hotel room on the wrong evening. I can show you. This is page 4 of the same exhibit.
Yes, that's accurate.
And eventually Ms. Klinsky extends an invitation to Ms. Phillips to stay with her in Winona that evening. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Ms. Phillips' response was that her, quote, me coming to Winona would only make things worse. Mark thinks that I'm coming to sleep with other guys. He's fucking crazy. seriously, I just want to sleep. I promise I am fine, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
You did, yes.
And that was at 12:16 a.m.?
Yes, sorry.
All right. Now, you reviewed the data that Investigator Haug completed from the Cellbrite download at some point after February 23rd. Is that correct?
It wasn't my task to be in charge of the cell phone data from that. I was made aware of things that were in the cell phone data, but again, it wasn't my responsibility in the investigation.
Okay. Well, you were aware of the fact that Ms. Phillips was searching for hotels, as she indicated. Is that correct?
Yes,
Including a specific search for the Baymont Inn?
yes.
And Lori's folder with the internet searches. And the internet searches for me. One of the terms that she searched for was physical abuse. Is that correct?
Yes.
Followed by it was misspelled, but it was physical abuse, quite Quite.
I believe that, yeah, I believe that's accurate.
And eventually, Ms. Phillips sent a text message to her husband, Mark, with something that appeared to be copied and pasted pursuant to this search. Is that correct?
Yes.
In the exhibit marked, please. All right. Investigator Leinfelder, I'm approaching what's been marked as Exhibit 517. Direct your attention to the two conversations in the middle.
Here?
That one and the one below it.
These two?
Are you familiar with those conversations?
Yes, I have seen them.
And those appear to be copies of the or text messages that Ms. Phillips sent to Mark Phillips?
Yes.
All right. Can I get the exhibit back, please?
Sure.
Offer Exhibit 517.
No objection.
Received.
Move to publish.
Any
Also
objection?
no objection.
You're allowed?
All right. So, first question, investigator. UTC stands for Universal Time Coordinated.
Yes, that's correct.
And not a name for that might be Greenwich Mean Time.
I believe so.
And in order to convert UTC time to Central Standard Time, we subtract 6 hours, correct?
I believe that's the correct time or the number of hours.
So on the top message there, subtracting 6 hours from 4:57 a.m. and 52 seconds would put us at 10:57 p.m. and 52 seconds. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I'm going to read this out loud, and let me know if I'm reading this correctly. Quote, I wish you the best, but the best will never be with me. You lost everything tonight because you let your mind get the best of you. I cannot even believe you put your hands on me. Good luck in Bismarck, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you read that correctly.
That appears to be sent from Ms. Phillips's telephone with the last four numbers of 0822.
Yes.
And it appears to be received by Mr. Phillips's telephone labeled on this document as Boss Man.
Yes.
That's followed up by what I was getting to earlier, a second text message following Ms. Phillips's Google search for physical abuse and physical abuse quit. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I'm going to read this one out loud as well, Investigator Leinfelder. Let me know if I'm reading this correctly. Quote, an abuser can seem emotionally needy. You can get caught in a trap of catering to him, trying to fill a bottomless pit. But he's not so much needy as entitled, so no matter how much you give him, it will never be enough. He will just keep coming up with more demands because he believes his needs are your responsibility until you feel drained down to nothing, end quote.
You read that correctly.
And I'm going to scoot this up on the Elmo here. It looks like the UTC time is 6:10 and 13 seconds. Subtracting 6 hours would put this at midnight, 13 minutes, or 10 minutes and 13 seconds. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that appeared to have been sent from Ms. Phillips' phone to Mr. Phillips' phone at that time?
Yes.
As an investigator, is it fair to assume that viewing these messages, you had some concerns about whether or not Ms. Phillips was a victim of physical abuse? Well, let me ask you this. Certainly the circumstances leading up to Ms. Phillips' departure were relevant to your investigation, correct?
Yes.
And the fact that Ms. Phillips appeared to be repeatedly expressing that Mr. Phillips had been physically abusive to her is certainly very relevant.
Yes, that's what Ms. Phillips told me in the interview.
And, investigator, am I correct in assuming that you did not take these text messages back to Ms. Phillips and ask her to elaborate on the degree and extent of domestic violence that happened on the 22nd?
Did these text messages go back to Ms. Phillips?
Did you take these text messages back to Ms. Phillips and
No, I
ask
didn't.
her about them?
No, I did not.